Hello and welcome to the weekly Life Mastery Show. So exciting. So my name is Adrian Hanks, for those that are new to the show, and I really look forward to spending the next hour with you and looking at all things to do with life mastery, because this show is all about supporting and guiding and inspiring you to bring yourself more into alignment with your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and all other aspects. So welcome. And what really helps this show to keep the magic, to keep the flow, is for you to be asking questions. And the way to do that is to type your questions into the chat feed below, and then I will read them and answer them to the best of my ability. And just remembering, I'm not using any psychic work today. This is purely about being quite practical and pragmatic, about helping you to get on track and stay on track in your life. So if you have any questions around your life in any way, about relationship, health, well-being, spirituality, sex, intimacy, anything that's going on in your life right now that you have a question for, then please do ask away. And remember, this is a public forum, so only ask what you are willing to share publicly. So great to see people jumping on already, and a great way to start the show is just to say hi, hello Adrian, and I will then say hi back. It's just nice to get that little bit of a communication, conversation going in the show. It makes me know that there are people out there watching and listening in, and it's always lovely to connect with a wider community as well. So hello to everybody listening and watching in, and if you do have any questions, please do ask away. So I'm sitting in my studio today. I'm on the Gold Coast in Australia. Been living here now for about the last 6 months. Had a 3-year journey down in Sydney, which was quite an experience, but now back north again, back on the Gold Coast, and enjoying the warmth, loving the ocean, loving the bushwalking up in the beautiful mountains here, and starting to re-engage with many people I knew when I did live up here several years ago, when I lived in South Brisbane area. So it's great to be connecting with people again on a physical level, particularly around the personal development and spiritual development space. So if you do have any questions, please type them in right now. And a good way to connect with me further is on my website, adrianhanks.com. And you can actually sign up on that website for a free 30-minute consultation with me to ascertain where you're at right now. So, hey, David, no, not in Minsk, David, I'm on the Gold Coast. And so great to have you on the show here listening in. But no, mate, I'm here on the Gold Coast, not doing the Minsk journey right now. So it's a big decision. And sometimes in life, about getting that life mastery is about making those tough decisions about where to be and where not to be. And one of the tough decisions was not to be in Minsk for the next few days with many of my good friends and business colleagues. So now I'm here on the Goldie, and yet it was a tough decision, David, but here I am on the Gold Coast now, running the show today live. So indeed, and a lot of it is about what I want to speak about today. This is actually a great segue, David, so thank you for this. Is about that discernment, staying in our own discernment, staying on our own truth, staying on our own energy, of having to make some decisions sometimes in life to stay in alignment with where we're at, and making a decision to do something or not do something takes incredible depth of wisdom to get to the right decision. Because oftentimes it's easy to just jump in and do something without actually making a conscious decision. So it's about that discernment of making a conscious decision. And I want to speak a bit about that today, filling the gaps between people asking questions, because this is all about you and helping you to get on track and stay on track in your life. But I will be filling that in, sharing a little bit about discernment. So once again, adrianhanks.com. I am the author of the book Where Am I Right Now, about to be republished in a new format, and you can pre-order that online. You can also jump online onto that website and download your journal. Now you can get the free format of this, where you can just print it off yourself, or you can actually order it and I will send it out as is, all bound and ready to go. And this is a great way to help you to stay on track and be on track. It's a journal with all the 10 different aspects in here. It's got the where am I right now, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, vocationally, sexually, intimately, financially, socially, creatively. And what you do, you work with all those aspects and just write it a little bit in each column every evening about how you were during the day. And I find this this journal a real great resource to help me stay on track and to ascertain where I've been every single day in my life. And I give myself a bit of a score around that of how I was each day, with then the idea of changing things the next day and taking myself up into the next level of living life, because I love to live the life at the fullest. I love to be in my 90-10 principle. And I always say to people, if you're in the personal development space, spiritual development space, a great aim is to live on the 80-20 principle or above on all those 10 different aspects that I've mentioned. And rather than thinking it or, or believing we're doing it when we're not actually really not doing it, and there's a bit of a mystery around that about how we tell ourselves the truth of how we're living life. A great way to check it out is to actually physically do it, physically do the journaling and physically ascertain where one is in life, because sometimes we can be in a bit of a delusion about how we're doing in life, and it's good to check in and be real and get really real in life. And I love to do that, and sometimes it's a bit of a shock because I'm realizing I'm not doing quite as well as my ego would like to think I am. So it's just a really great check-in to use that journal. So that's on adrianhanks.com website. Hey, Bridgie, hi Adrian. I work with a nasty narcissist, and through his lies he had a GM sacked and is now making lies up about me. I've done many meditations on the subject and I'm lost at how to handle him. Well, great question. Look, interesting word, narcissism, and it depends on one's perspective. I'm not belittling your question here in any way, Bridgie, but I'd firstly ask of how you ascertain that he's a narcissist and what that actually means and what he's actually done, and from your perspective, because others may have a different perspective. And when we work in the psychotherapeutic field, we have to be very cautious and very clear about labeling. Yeah, I know there's a label around, people who are narcissists and people who are this and they're people that. But the one thing I'd say, and this is a great way to really ascertain where we're at in life from a conscious spiritual perspective of how we work with people, how we label people, how we judge people, how we are with people. So not to belittle your question, I'm certainly not doing that, but I just want to get clear on your perception of that narcissism and how that man operates in that narcissistic way, and what you are doing then to challenge that. Because if you sit in meditation around it, that's not really addressing the situation, because the way we address bullies, narcissists and people who are taking their authority to a place beyond conscious authority, then at some point we have to engage in that process with them. We have to find a way through to work through the communication of what is actually happening, particularly in the workplace. And there are legal ways to do that. And I often, when I'm working with people in conflict resolution areas, I say sometimes we have to get legal, sometimes we have to bring in the legal team, or we have to have a structure within inside the organization or the company to deal with such matters as these. Let me just read on. He had lied about his work and what is done here on a daily basis. So at some point, Bridgie, that has to be called out. If that's the truth of the situation, and from your perspective, then at some point that has to be called out. It has to be discussed, and whether that's with a third party within in-house, or whether you bring in a professional from the outside to work in that. He is having direct contact with our parent company. Okay, so at some point you have to make a call to contact somebody in authority to deal with the situation. You may have to do this in a company policy way or in a legal way, where you put it down in writing so that it is addressed, so that you cannot be sacked for making a complaint or making an inquiry. So there are great ways, within the structure now of employee safety, where you can actually go to management, make an inquiry, make a complaint. Yes, it has been with all documentation. Fantastic. So my question is, why hasn't it been followed through? Who's not taking action to sit you and this man down together, or sit whoever needs to be sitting with you or this person, to take it to the next level? So for me, when I look at a situation like this, there are always levels. There's the initial confrontation, conflict, issue, and then we take a big breath and go, what's next? The next is, to document it, as you say, to go to the next person in authority, as you say, and then what's next? And then deal with that, and then what's next? So it's a systematic process to get to the core challenge of what's actually behind all this. What is behind this and how can it be resolved? Because at the end of the day, what you're asking for, what I'm reading it here, is you want some resolution to the situation. And sometimes we have to take a big breath, we have to find the courage, we have to find the vulnerability, we have to take a risk if that's what we want as an outcome. If we want that as an outcome, to get some peace as an outcome, to get some resolution as an outcome, then we do have to take some risk around that. Management is of the opinion it doesn't matter, and I've been told not to interfere. Then you have to question, Bridgie, what's the next step? Because it's in conflict resolution, there's always a next step. Always a next step. And you may get blocked at different junctures of that process, but you just have to think calmly, consistently, and say, okay, if that person's not dealing with the situation, or that person in the office, then who's the next level of inquiry? And sometimes you have to go outside of the company to authorities that deal with situations like this, to the ombudsman, for instance, or other areas, because there's always another level. There's always another level. And then eventually, you can even go to the Hague, to the Department of Human Rights. That there's always another level to go to if you're not feeling heard. And this is a great lesson for us all, for everybody listening in right now. Yeah, anybody listening in right now, is if you're stuck in a conflict situation where it needs to go to another level, and you ask yourself, what is the next level? Where do I need to go next? And it does take courage. It is sometimes a risk. But if you really want to break through and get to the core issue and get to that resolution, you will have to finally do that. Yeah. At the moment, I feel I should just leave, but I'm not a quitter. Yeah, exactly. There's always a choice, Bridgie, to leave. Yeah. And then the conflict continues with somebody else. Or we take up the challenge and say, well, if I help to put a stop to this now, if I can bring this to a resolution now, how many other people am I supporting in the process? And probably helping this person in the process too, to look at his own journey, to look at his own soul, to look at where he's at in life as well. And sometimes we have to be the change maker. Sometimes we have to be the person to step in and do that. I do it a lot in my life, particularly as a therapist. I have to step in and sometimes make difficult situations, have the difficult conversations. But I know when I do that, when I find the courage and the vulnerability to do that, and those changes come, I feel really good. Yep. So Bridgie, it's about you making that decision. Yes, you can leave, and maybe sometimes that is the choice, but do it consciously. Whatever you choose, do it consciously. Do a conscious process to say, is it time to leave, or is it time to roll up my sleeves and do whatever's needed to take this to the next level? Yeah. Can you give me some guidance with my work career, please? Should I stay or should I go? Okay. So Bridgie, I hope that really helps, and I'm just going to move on to these other questions. If you need any support in that, Bridgie, please do call me. Go to my website, adrianhanks.com. I do offer free 30-minute initial consultations to see if we're a match to work together in the future. So if you want some support on this, I think it may be worth you doing that. So I'm just going to jump through here. There's a couple of others. Susan, any advice, please, in general? And Tina. So look, for Tina and Susan and anybody else listening in, I don't do any psychic work where I just am generic in what I answer in terms of anything in general. I like to work specifically with specific questions. So because the more specific you are in your question, the more consciousness is involved, and the more I can actually respond in a conscious way to a very clear question, I can give a lot clearer answer. So that's the way I work on this show. So please do that. Ask a question. By all means, please ask a question about life, where you're at, and try not to be too generic. Try and be as clear as you can and precise as you can, because that's how we break through. That's how we get clear on bringing ourselves on track in life and staying on track. Because a big part of conscious work is about clarity. Clarity of the mind, clarity of thought, clarity of thinking. It's one of the highest endeavors of spirituality, is clarity of thinking. And if we think through our questions and get clear on our questions, it really helps us to bring that conscious awareness through. So that's the way I work. So you're very happy to have that. And comments are welcome too. Sometimes I'll read the comments out loud, sometimes just to myself. I'm just going to read Karen's here. Yeah, thank you, Karen, for that comment. Yeah, look, narcissism is a very interesting one. It's a word that's bandied around a lot in the psychotherapeutic place with counsellors. I tend not to label. I just steer clear of labeling, because I believe everybody has something to work through in life. And if we start to label people narcissists, then we have to look at the bigger picture of that. Why are they acting in that narcissistic manner? And what can we do to support them and to engage with them, to help them to see themselves in their own behavior, and then help them to change that. And that's very possible. I work with a lot of people who have egos or so-called narcissists or have issues and challenges going around, and we work label free. I tend to try not to put labels on anybody in my work. It's just a way I like to work, because it's easy to label anybody. I can label myself, and I can certainly know that people can label me in certain ways. I've been called many, many things, and labels don't do anything to help anybody. What I like to say is everybody's on a soul journey, and how can we support each other on that soul journey? And sometimes it's about we have to speak to that person. Sometimes we have to engage with that person. Sometimes we have to get a professional to work with that person. And I know I hear often they don't want to do any work on themselves. Well, we have to find a way sometimes to let them see that they actually probably may need some assistance in their life. And there's some great coaches and therapists out there to help people. And it's about supporting people to go and get that professional support to help them to see how they operate in the world, because that's called global conscious spiritual community for me. We don't ostracize people. We actually try to support them in their journey. And I know that's a challenging, difficult one, but it's how I like to operate. And sometimes, yes, I am judgmental, and sometimes I do label, but I'm really conscious more and more and more about trying not to do that, because I believe everybody needs actually support from a soul perspective, a spiritual perspective, to be part of our global community. And if we keep ostracizing people and label people and pushing people away and not actually engaging in the process, we're actually not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. So that's how I do like to work. I'm just going to read a few more here. Angela, hi Adrian, how do we help a non-spiritual person realize their worth and strength? I'm the only person they have and tend to take on their energy. Okay, Angela, great question. Look, from my perspective, everybody is spiritual. It's just how we see people in that perspective. I know people who don't go to any spiritual churches, they don't meditate, they don't do anything that we seem to deem as spiritual, and yet they're some of the most spiritual people I know, and it's because of what they do on the planet. It's the service they give to others. It's what they actually do every single day in their daily lives. So they may not recognize, as you say here, that they have worth, that they're spiritual, that they have strengths, but they're doing their journey. Now, if we need to let them know that, then that's one good thing. So I just want to read your question again so I'm clear about the question. How do we help a non-spiritual person realize their worth and strength? Okay, well, we can certainly tell them. We can sit and tell them. We can say, I really admire what you do. I think you're a wonderful person. I think what you're doing on the planet is absolutely beautiful. Yep, because that's engaging people. That's letting people know their worth. I'm the only person they have and tend to take on their energy. So one thing, Angela, it's your choice of whether you take on somebody's energy or not. And I'm really clear about this when I do my spiritual development work with people. And if I'm coaching people in that spiritual space to become healers or therapists of some kind, or if people just want to be more deeply in the spiritual path, what I say to people is stop taking on people's energy. It is a choice. You do not have to take on people's energy. Because when you do, there's a story behind that. Why are you taking on their energy? What are you gaining from taking on their energy? What story are you telling yourself? What story are you telling others? So I don't take on people's energy, full stop. I have a very clear professional boundary, social boundary, relationship boundary. where I do not take people's stuff on board. I've got enough of my own stuff. I do not need to take people's stuff on board. I can support people, and sometimes it's about asking them the hard question. And one of the best questions I find for people when I deem that they're in a stuck place, and they say to me, Adrian, life is tough, I'm not getting on, blah, 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 blah. I say to them, what are you doing about it? I put it back on them. What are you doing about it? Are you seeing a professional? Have you booked in for a session with me or with another therapist? What are you doing about it? It's a great question to keep repeating it. Rather than keep telling me the same old story over and over and over again about how life isn't going very well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? What have you done today about it? What are you going to do tomorrow about it? And that's a good way. So Angela, in that, I'd say have a conversation with them, a deep conversation. Let them know about their strengths and words, and ask them how they feel about themselves. And I would implore you, get them if you can to book in and see a specialist, a therapist, a coach, a counsellor to help them if you deem that they actually require it. But ask them if they feel they do as well. So, yeah, lovely, thank you. Current job, will it complete me? Tina, same thing. I don't do generic questions, I'm sorry. If you have something very specific about your current job, then I'm all willing to engage in that conversation, but I don't do generic questions because I want you to come into your full consciousness about asking specific questions. Will it complete me? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by completing you? If you're feeling incomplete, can you name that aspect of your being that is feeling incomplete? And then address that so you can complete that. Will financial issues be resolved during the rest of August? Same thing for you, Helen. I'm not doing that psychic work. So get clear with me. Will financial issues be resolved during the rest of August? That would see me moving during September. Well, Helen, it depends on you. It depends on your focus, your financial literacy, your financial understanding, the way you're working in business, the way you're connected. What visions do you have for yourself? What are you doing in your business? So it's coming back to you, Helen. So it's about what are you doing to make August really good for you. And if you want to book in for a 30-minute free consultation with Helen and anybody else listening in, go to my website, adrianhanks.com, and you can book in for a session. I will be updating that at 1 o'clock afterwards to give a few more days for next week on that calendar as well. There's a couple of days left for and I will be updating that so you can book in for next week as well. So if you want to do that after 1 o'clock, book in for a session with me, you certainly can do. Any spirit is watching over me. Marina, all the time, my friend. We have our spiritual guides watching us all the time. And it's about discerning which ones you want to be watching, which ones you want to engage with, and being clear and conscious about, what spirit beings am I working with? I work with my spiritual team all the time. I'm very discerning about the ones I allow into my space and the ones that I just keep well out of my space because I don't want them anywhere near me. And that's that boundary I spoke of before. So, yeah, there's spirits watching around you all the time. If you have a more specific question, Marina, then please ask a specific question. Are you able to give me anything in regards to my grandson's health? Susan, once again, I'm not doing any spiritual downloading on this show. What I'd say to you, Susan, if you're worried about your grandson's health, then contact him or whoever is with him and ask them, are they seeing a professional? Are they seeing a doctor? Are they seeing a healer? And they can actually then let you know how your grandson's health is. I don't know what the situation is right now with your grandson, so I can't answer that. Because once again, let's not be generic. Let's get really clear and precise on our questions, because that's true conscious thinking. And that's why I want to work with people on this show. I want to help everybody to get into more conscious awareness, more conscious thinking. And the way we do that is to get away from being generic, get really precise and clear. So Rosemary, true. Rosemary, hello. Suzanne, hello. I have enough to deal with, my own baggage. Absolutely, Rosemary. Me too. I don't take on other people's stuff. Finally, someone who's real. Oh, thank you, Tanya. I do like to think I am real. No, not discounting others who are not real. We are all real on our way. But look, we all have psychic abilities. We all have ways to download information from above if we're trained in that area or have that gift, which, by the way, we all have if we open up to it. But in my work, in my coaching and counselling, I steer clear of that. because that's not what I'm offering, and it's not what I'm offering on this show. This show is all about helping people to bring in their own conscious awareness, their own sense of self, and to engage in what I call the life mastery process, where we make our own decisions, where we're really clear on going forward, where we make difficult decision making, where we ask precise questions. So yeah, I call that real for myself too, and I do like to be very grounded in my approach, particularly on this show. I can do the psychic stuff too, and I can, I've got my own psychic awareness, and I've got my own angels and beings I work with when needed. But I choose not to do that, certainly publicly. It's just not where I'm at in my being, in my life. And when needed, I use it, but I don't use it. Certainly on this show, this is the Life Mastery Show. But thank you for the compliment. I will take that into my heart. Thank you, Tanya. My grandson, the scan booked tomorrow. He has a heart condition. Okay, so Susan, I'd say wait for those scans. Let the professionals let you know what's going on. And you can tune in from that way. So Tanya, my daughter, is 28 and has never had a partner. Will she before I pass? Tanya, I don't know. It depends on her ability to go and communicate with other people, and whether she actually wants to be with a partner or not. That's absolutely her choice. I cannot say whether she will or whether she won't. I'd say I'm not going to get my crystal ball out and pretend I know anything in that field, or even want to go and look in that field. It's not my business. One, because your daughter has not asked me to look into that, because I'm very clear about only engaging in other people's life journeys into their own karma when I work directly with them. So when I'm asked about another person, unless I have their permission, I very rarely go into that space about giving people a question about somebody else, because I think that's pushing past the boundary of karma and boundary of personal space. So I don't generally go into that place anyway, Tanya, because it's not what I do. I don't ask and answer questions about other people unless they precisely ask me about themselves, or whether it's a little bit more specific. So I would say with your daughter, she's 28. A Saturn return, a great time to be on the planet at 28 years old. Great time to make choices. Great time to turn things around in one's life with at 28, Saturn return. And she may or may not have a partner. Depends on her choice. Depends on what she wants. That would be my answer to you. Sorry to be pragmatic, but it's just the way I am, because I'd say I'm not getting into any of the spiritual download on this show. So yeah, Tanya, love the t-shirt. Thank you. Yeah, this is my Africa t-shirt. I spend quite a lot of time in Africa. My wife is actually from South Africa. And actually, let's do a bit of our Adrian promo right now. Is in August next year, so in 12 months' time, I will be in South Africa. I do 21-day journeys, or I did do 21-day journeys to Africa and other countries around South Africa. But after some discussion with my mastermind partner this week and getting a bit of a change in focus, I'm now doing a 10-day trip to South Africa next August, and I take 8 people at a time, and we do a very deep spiritual journey to South Africa. I'm going to visit sacred sites. We do a safari walk out in nature with the lions and the hyenas and the elephants and the giraffes and the buffalo and all the rest of it. And you can actually book in for that right now today if you want to, and be one of those 8 people. I do have a super special on to the end of the month, and it's for people who want to book in right now. If you book in with me and pay up front now, you actually get your flight to South Africa return free, up to $2,000 worth of value. So if you want to do an Africa trip and Africa's in your calling, and you do it like in the next few days, you can get a free flight return to Africa. Otherwise, it's an amazing trip. It's very deep, very personal. I do interview people to go. It's not just an open book for everybody to join. It has to be the right people, the right team, because the synergy, the energy has to be right. It's a very powerful place to be. We do some deep spiritual work in some very powerful spiritual places, and I've got my own guides there with Sakilo and Dean, who were South Africans. Dean actually married my wife and I 14 years ago yesterday. It was our wedding anniversary yesterday. He's a spiritual shaman in South Africa, and he actually married Arlene and I on a sacred site in Africa 14 years ago yesterday, and we do return to that site when I go and do that tour. So if you're open to coming to Africa, go to adrianhanks.com website, and the Spirit of Africa Journey click is on there, and you can have a read, watch some videos, and have a conversation with me. So there's a bit of a segue into my spiritual t-shirt of the lion in Africa. So Bridgie, thank you, Adrian. I'll be taking everything you said on board. Have to go now. Love and light. Yeah, love and light and blessings to you, Bridgie. And thank you for the communication. I really appreciate it, because this what makes this show work is when people ask me questions and engage in the process. So, hey, Tony, hello to you too. So if anybody's got any questions, we've had some great questions already this morning. We've had some great connections this morning. And remember, it's about being precise and clear on the questions. Nothing generic, please. I'd just like to help people to get to that clear, conscious communication space by asking very clear, precise questions. So let me have a little sip of drink. I do like a little mug of coffee. And once again, if anybody missed it, you can go to my website. You can download the free version of the Where Am I Right Now journal, or you can order the ready-made version. And it's a great way to work to ascertain where you are right now in life. And it's a great journal. It's already ready to go. You don't have to write much, just a few words in each block. And it's a great daily or evening exercise to do to help you to stay on track in life and to ascertain where you actually are in life and what's going on for you. So, and there's quite a few other things on my website too, particularly if you go into the store. There's some online programs and there's some other things on there too. So please do go and check out my website, adrianhanks.com, and hopefully we can engage and do something together if you feel like it, if you feel like I'm the right person to work with. I am actually a psychotherapist and counsellor. I've been doing that now for nearly 20 years. I'm also a coach. I help people with small business, particularly people in that space when they're setting up a small business for themselves for the first time, because it's not just about all getting the numbers and everything. There's an energetic perspective to bring into business as well, of how you're aligning with your business, how you're working with your business, what are the right phrases, the right words, the right colors, the right energy flow in your business. And I help people to get set in that and to help them get along. And I'll give you a little bit of a story while I'm just waiting for another question to pop up on the screen. And please do pop up those questions, because it's what keeps the show going. But a few years ago, I was working with somebody. Oh, hang on, I've just got a question here, then I'll continue the story. Can you see any success for me? I'm waiting to see if I'm lucky enough to make the Glamorgan archery team. Whoa, fantastic. The archery team. Actually, a friend of mine, Tony, I was in Copenhagen a few years ago while the Olympics archery was happening there, and actually got to see some of the world's top archers in Copenhagen a few years ago. Actually got there myself and had a go with a bow and hit a few center rings, which is really nice. I do a bit of archery myself. I really love it. And a friend of mine's daughter was actually on the Olympic team for Australia. So archery is an amazing thing. So I'm not going to do any of that psychic stuff, as I say, Tony, about, getting a sense of whether you're going to be or whether you're not going to be. What I can say to you is the success is up to you, my friend. The success is purely on your focus, on how you see. And I'd say it won't be about luck. This is not, archery is not luck. You know that. I know that. This is about skill. This is about you tuning in and focusing in on your ability to be really fantastic at archery, to be in that team. And you can do that by practice, in a practical practice, getting out there for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 hours a day with your bow, setting up, getting clear, having your routine set so that everything you do is the same. So you get into that routine, you get the headspace. You get your breathing. You get your stance. You get yourself centered. You get the arrow set. And you can do that in visualization to begin with before you even practically do it. So you can visualize yourself doing it, close your eyes or soft-eyed and see yourself from a different objective of being there on the platform, seeing yourself, getting the award, seeing yourself putting that arrow through the center into the bull ring. So you can do it from a conscious place from the mind, and then you can do it from a practical perspective. But Tony, this is about you, my friend. This is about you believing in yourself. This is about you doing the work. This is about you setting the focus. This is about you feeling like you belong on that team. So you don't feel disconnected from that team. So you feel worthy of being in that team. Because that's what it takes. This is what it takes to be absolutely in that athletic space. Absolutely. And I use the analogy of Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfing comebacks in the history of golf from my perspective and what I see. Last year he won the Masters in America after all he went through. The mental collapse, the relationship collapse, the professional collapse, the mind collapse, the belief collapse, everything. And he came back and he just held his mind all the way through those 4 days. And he just held the focus and he believed in himself again. And the coach believed in him and his children believed in him. And he won the Masters. If you haven't seen that last 5 or 10 minutes, go and Google Tiger Woods winning the Masters last year, or earlier this year. Absolutely incredible focus, and that's what it takes to be on top of one's game, whatever it is in life. So Tony, that would be what I say to you, my friends. Get on that team, go and do the practical work, go and do the mindset work, and get yourself set so that you're the one that's in charge. This is not luck. And it's not about telling you whether you have success or not. I'm just not going into that space here. It would be a disservice for you. It would be a disservice to you for me to say, yeah, I can see you being on the stage, getting a gold medal, being in the team. It's not about that, my friend. You know that, I know that. So let's get practical, let's get real. Go for it, and please let us know how you go. But this is up to you. Absolutely, it's up to you. So thank you. So just getting back to my story, because this might aid people in building up their businesses. I was working with somebody a few years ago, kinesiologist, wanted to set up a kinesiology business, put out a price. I think it was like $75 or $100 a session. First couple of weeks, didn't get anybody booked in. And I said to her, so are you using your own tools of kinesiology to engage in what your price set should be, what your client should be, where you work from, etc., etc.? Because if you're a kinesiologist, you can muscle test and use your own tools. And she said, no, I haven't. I said, well, slap on the wrist, you should be using your tools. So we did some kinesiology work. We set a price for her $75 a session as an intro session for her work, because she was new in the industry, new in the business, didn't have any clients. And within 2 weeks, she was full. She was getting clients coming in, because we got her to the space where she was aligning to the right energy connection of what her clients valued her at in terms of her worth, new on the scene, just coming into the business. And now she's got quite a good business, but we had to work out the energy flow of the business. And that's really important in new businesses. And I certainly help people in that space. So Tony, will do. Yep. Go and do it. And just while you're there, Tony, I'm just going to jump off screen and just show you the arrow I use. So I don't actually fire this at people with a bow, but what I do, with my clients, I place it on their heart. It's got a very real point. It's a real arrow. It's one I've actually fired and used in my own archery. Very, very point. And I put it there to help people to see that they carry pain, because we've all got our arrows. We've all got our wounds. And what often happens is somebody will brush past us in life, or say something in life, or do something in life, and they will re-trigger that wound just by being in our vicinity, or saying something, or doing something, or we perceive they've done something. It triggers an old wound, and then we're back into the old story. And I want to come back to something that was shared at the beginning of the show about narcissists. Because yes, there are people who are narcissists, from a psychotherapeutic perspective. They can be labeled, if you like, as narcissists from a professional, by the way, who understands what narcissism is. But what often happens with people, we label people because of our own wound. And this is what I keep talking about. Let's get away from labeling people. Let's get a look at where they are in their soul, in their spirit, what they're going through in their own wounding, and why they're acting in a certain way. And I can guarantee, whether we label them as bullies, as narcissists, or whatever we label them, they are carrying a wound. They are protecting themselves with that behavior. So we have to go beyond that. If we really want to be in a spiritual community, support each other, we have to look at beyond the behavior. We have to look at the wound behind the behavior. So I don't do bullies. If you go to my website, actually, adrianhanks.com, and go into the media section, there's a great video on there where I talk about bullies, because I don't do bullies. I just simply don't do them, because I look for the wound. I look for the soul quality. I don't look at the behavior. I don't look at bullying behavior as a behavior, because it's just a protection. Bullies just are protecting themselves from their own wound. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. And sometimes, yes, that can be violence. I do a lot of work in the domestic violence space, and there are people out there doing some horrific things. Horrific things. What are they doing it from? Because they weren't born that way. We are not born violent. So we have a story. We have something going on where we act out from something. And I'm not trying to protect these people. I'm not trying to say that that's okay behavior. But what I'm saying is we have to look at it in a different way if we want to look at it from a spiritual perspective. We really do. And these are hard conversations to have, but that's what I love doing. I love being out there having hard conversations, because that's how we change humanity, with hard conversations. And I'm willing to do that. It's something I do. It's not always comfortable, but I'm here to help change humanity, and I'm willing to have those hard conversations. So, yep, Tony, yep, very nice. And yeah, I do love my arrow. And I was actually out in Victoria in January with a friend, and he had his bows and arrows set up, and he had a couple of nice, beautiful long bows, and then he had the more modern technique bows. And I must say, I prefer the old longer bows, the beautiful timber. Yeah, absolutely beautiful, and I love shooting those arrows and getting in the zone. And it's a beautiful meditative space to be in, and it's something that I'd like to do more of. So Tony, if you're in the vicinity, if you're around the Gold Coast, Brisbane, and you're an archer, maybe I'd love to come and shoot a few arrows with you at some point. You just PM me and invite me along. So my late great dad in spirit world, and always supported me in archery. Just wish he was here now today. Hey Tony, got some news for you, mate. I've got some news for you, my friend. Your father's always around. The past ones are with us all the time. All we have to do is make the connection. We have to plug in the connection. We have to sit in that space, tune in, let them in, and they're there. They're absolutely there. I've got my father's still alive, but my grandparents, whenever I want them, my friend, they've passed over. I just close my eyes, tune in, let them in, and I can have as many deep conversations as I want with them, because they haven't gone away. They haven't gone away. They really haven't. That spirit is still there until they move on, until, well, my belief system is they're still there in that spirit space until they move into their next incarnation. And then sometimes we can lose that connection if they've moved on and they're not still in the spiritual space, but they've re-engaged in another incarnation to move forward. And that's why sometimes people can, from my perspective, what I believe, is people lose connection with people on the other side, because the people on the other side have moved into a new incarnation and they're not in that spirit space anymore. And I do believe that can happen. And yeah, that's a whole nother story I won't get into now, but that's a part. So I'd say, unless your dad's moved into another incarnation, which is generally unlikely if it's been in the last few years, because from my knowledge, my understanding, from what I perceive, is our incarnations do not happen, really, really quickly. It's quite unusual. Sometimes it does. Sometimes children can be incarnated very quickly, and people can be incarnated again. But usually there's a gap of several hundred or sometimes even thousands of years between incarnations. Sometimes it's not, and I don't want to be generic. So if your father's still around, check it out and see if he's going to tune into you, my friend. So let's see what happens. Yeah, would love to hear from my dad. So Tony, if you wanted to hear from your dad, go and sit in contemplation, meditation, get a photograph of him or some memory of him, put it in front of you, and just sit there and wait, and just be open and ask a question that only you can ask. This is how, when I'm working with psychics and when I'm working with myself, the only way I can truly test to know if it's somebody I'm tuning into from the other side is I get confirmation, and this is where I come back to discernment. This is where I come back to my discernment. I get confirmation by asking a question that I know that person on the other side can only answer to me. So I'll ask a very specific personal question. And if the medium I'm working with can work in that way, I know they're for real. And I've worked with some great mediums over the years where we've asked specific questions to specific people on the other side, where I know from their answer that it's real, because I'm the only one that knows the connection to that answer. And that's how I discern when I'm working with people who are working in the spiritual medium space. An example is I've got a good friend who passed over many years ago. He actually suicided back when he was 19. So I'm going back, 36 years ago, and very dear friend of mine. And I love to communicate with him, and sometimes I do that through medium. And when I do, there's a specific thing that he and I have as a connection that only we know. And if the medium knows that and can tell me about that, I'll work with them. If they can't, I won't continue. That's my lead-in, that's my gateway, that's my litmus test. Very, very powerful. So I do the same. So have a question to ask and wait for that reply to come through. You might get that sort of in a mind place. You might get that in a heart feeling space, depending on how you work. Everybody communicates in a different way for the spiritual world. But you have to be open and clear and not in fear and not in doubt, but open to it. And it does take practice. It may take you 10 or 20 times. But if you want to hear from him, you can go to a psychic, you can go to medium and do that. And that's all well and good. And it's beautiful to do that. But if you just want to do it on a daily basis, just sit and open up. I do it to my grandparents. I do it to friends who've passed over. I do it to people I know. I work with my guides that way. My greatest guide is Rudolf Steiner. I've been working with, Rudolf Steiner was my, don't have a book here, but Rudolf Steiner's, I've been connected to his work for 25 years. And I often have questions for Rudolf Steiner. Really do. And whether it's, a direct connect to him, or whether it's my mind, I don't really know, but I do believe, yes, I'm connecting to the spirit of him or the energy space of him. And I sit and ask those questions as I do of other people as well. And for me, I discern whether it's true for me. That's all we can do. Self-discernment. That's all we have. So I hope that helps, Tony. So go sit and check in with Dad and see if you can get some answers to some specific questions that he can answer for you. And it might be just a case of just opening up and feeling his presence and allowing the emotions to come of what that is. So thank you for the engagement, Tony, and good luck with the archery. So any other questions around life mastery, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or any other area? It's been some great questions today, some great connections and communication today. For anybody listening in to the recording of this, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, which you won't obviously if you're listening to the recording, you can connect with me directly. Go to my website, adrianhanks.com, or PM me or friend me on Facebook and make that connection. If you want a free 30-minute consultation, we can do that. And then from that, we can find out what's going on for you and ascertain whether I'm a good person for you to work with or not. And we can actually book you in for a few one-on-one sessions, or book you into one of my programs or online programs, or whatever is best suited to you. But please do go and check out my website, adrianhanks.com. Particularly if you'd like to come to Africa. I mentioned that before, I've got the lion t-shirt on, and I am taking a small group of people to Africa in August next year. And I've got a super early bird special for that to give a bit of a plug for my business. So go and check that out as well. It is quite an incredible life-changing journey being in Africa. I was there a year before last, and actually got chased by a couple of white rhino, 3 white rhino, which was quite an experience. And actually on my Facebook page, I've just posted that story up on my Facebook page, Adrian Hanks on Facebook, and you can go on that and read that story and have a look at the Africa trip. So lots of other things. It's what I do every day. I connect with people, I work with people, I support people. I hope to inspire people, guide people, and even positively challenge people to break through to get more out of life. Because when we live life to the full, when we live life in that 90-10 principle, or at least an 80-20 principle, it's very different. When we're conscious of what we do every day, when we make conscious decisions, sometimes hard decisions, every single day. It's a different lifestyle. It's very, very different. Conscious of what we eat, what we drink, what we put into our being in terms of medication, whether that's prescribed medication or self-prescribed medication, whether it's drugs, recreational drugs or prescribed drugs, the thoughts and the beliefs we put into our mind, the things we read, the things we watch, the things we do. The more conscious we are of that every single day, the more conscious we are of that every single day, the more we come into alignment with our path, with our truth, with our spiritual path. Because we're all spiritual. We all come from a spiritual place. We're all born on this planet with a journey, with a story, with something to do. And it's about finding that passion, finding that way forward, and then sharing that with others so that others can do the same. That's the gift. That's what I believe is the gift. So Tony's got something here. I so believe in this. I've been told by a medium in the past, my dad actually lives here with me here. To be honest, I've seen him here in my lounge and it's so comforting. Just wish he could speak to me. Hey Tony, I am sure, my friend, with some practice, he will speak to you. With some practice. How he does that, you'll have to work that out, because we all communicate through spirit in a different way. Sometimes we hear it, sometimes we feel it, and we have to translate what we feel into words. Sometimes it's a direct visual. Sometimes people see people do things from the other side. So it depends on your connection and how you work and how you train yourself to work. But it's very possible. And it may take some time, so be patient with yourself, with him, with Dad. He's probably knocking at the door going, hey, I'm trying to speak to you, Tony, and I just want you to find a way to hear me. I want you to find a way to hear what I have to say to you. Because they have the means to communicate, but we have to find the means to open up to receive the communication. And this is why a lot of people do go to mediums. But I say, if you're going to go to a medium, no disrespect to mediums, there's some, I know some wonderful mediums, but check it out with a question that you know, that only you and Dad will know about. Could be specific. Could be something about, the name of your last dog or something, where the medium will get that and say, yep, I'm tuning into Dad and he's talking about not the dog, but he's talking about Blackie. And then you know it's clear. So get precise, and this is what I'm trying to do in this program, is get people to ask specific questions so it's not generic. Because the more precise you are, the more connection there will be. The deeper the connection, the deeper the wisdom coming through, the deeper you can communicate and ask questions. And maybe there's some unresolved things you need to share and talk about. That's quite common with people who passed over. I didn't get time to talk to Dad because he passed on before I could ask him something. Well, here's a great opportunity. And you'll probably get a different perspective now, because he's not in his ego perspective. He's not in a defense perspective. He's in his spiritual being. So he's going to answer it from a spiritual perspective. So it's a very different communication. Very, very different communication. So be open to that. Be ready for that. But do take the time and have the patience and find a way forward. Just practice it. My dad was a heavy smoker. No one else in the house smokes, but I know he's here because oftentimes that the sense of smell, the sense of taste is very present when people do spiritual work, because it's the reminder of, it's the human 3D connection of, it's the corporeal connection of the memory of that being, of that person. So oftentimes there will be a taste or a smell or a sense of something, of the connection between that memory. So when he's present, yep, I'm sure you smell the smoke. So that's when you bask in that. That's when you open up into that and say, hey, Dad, I know you're present. I know you're present. I want to communicate with you. And bear with me. I'm new at this. I'm just having a practice. I may not be getting it right, but I want to communicate. Can you give me a little sign that you're here, that you're hearing me? Because I really want to hear what you have to say. I want to feel you. And I'm new at this. So can you just show me something or give me a bit of a feel or something I know where I know that you're here. And at that point, you'll hear something, you'll feel something, you'll get a sense of something, and you have to trust it. Because a big thing about doing medium work is you have to trust it. But you also have to be discerning, and I'm using this word again today. You have to be discerning to be clear about what coming through is Dad. And you'll know that. But it's about discernment. Because when you open yourself up into the spiritual world, it's a bit like diving into the ocean. There's a million different fish in there. And if you want to go and, snorkel or scuba dive and see one fish, you have to be specific about honing in on that one fish. But there's going to be a million other ones around you. Same as the spiritual world. You want to hone into one being, all well and good. But remember, there's a million others around, and they might want to jump in and have a conversation too. And sometimes that may or may not be what you actually want to engage with. So be discerning with who and what you engage with in the spiritual world. So that's what I'll be saying in there. Discernment, 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 and just checking out, is Dad that's there? And you can do that by being very specific and feeling it or hearing it or tasting it or smelling it, because all that works when we're working in that first level of communication and when we're staying present here and they're on the other side, because we have to find a way through that doorway, because it's a doorway into the spiritual world, and we can have a connection. It's like at the telephone line, if you like, into that, because we're not choosing to go through that doorway. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother journey. That's a whole nother training. But if you just want to do the telephone call between, it's very, very accessible and attainable, but it does take practice. It takes patience, takes discernment, and you need all those things to get you there. So Tony, yeah, thank you, because this helps other people too. Because what I say to people on this show is, if you have the courage to ask a question, I am really serious in saying you're not just asking this question for yourself. There'll be others listening in, watching in, who will have the same challenge, will have the same question, will have the same issue. And by you doing it, you're helping others at the same time. So thank you for asking this question on behalf of many others too, Tony. So you know what you're saying makes great sense. Yeah, sometimes, Tony, it's just about hearing it sometimes. So I know you probably know this stuff, but when it comes from somebody else, sometimes it's just what we need. We just need to hear it in the right moment, synchronicity, in the right moment, when you're ready for it. As they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will come, and when you're ready, the message will come. So sometimes it's about getting the message in the right moment, the right minute, of the right day, of the right week, of the right year, of the right incarnation. And when we hear it, we can go, yep, now I'm ready. So maybe, Tony, this is your moment. This is the moment to open up to whatever you haven't done in the past, to really connect to Dad, and go and do it. I feel a bit of an emotion arising there for you. So jump in, do what you can, trust it, have the discernment, and see what unfolds for you. And if you want any support on that, you've got my contacts. Jump on the website, get that free 30-minute consultation with me if you want some support. Very happy to do that. So what I love to do is tell people to get on track and stay on track, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a time check here. Wow, we are 12:59. We are coming to the end of a show. Where does that hour go to? It's quite incredible how quickly that hour goes. It's an amazing space. I love being on this show every week. Be here again next week. Made a commitment to be here right through with the new program being set up. If you haven't checked anything else out with Sarah right now, please do so on the Spiritual Directory. She has some amazing things happening, and love to be part of the Spiritual Directory team, and look forward to connecting up with you again next week on the Life Mastery Show. So love and blessings to you. Be well. Speak to you again soon. Ciao.